About a decade and a half ago, my family and I took a national park tour of Bryce, Zion, and Grand Canyon National Parks. I remember loving the waterfalls at Zion and the clear night sky filled with stars at Bryce, but I was awestruck by the Grand Canyon. I remember it being so massive that it felt impossible to take it all in. And then to add even more awe to the experience, we were there shortly after the Skywalk opened. If you don't know about the Skywalk, it's a transparent walkway of glass which juts out over the canyon itself. You're literally hovering 4,000 feet above the ground beneath you. The only thing between you and death is this see-through glass walkway. And if that's not terrifying enough for the normal person, I have to admit I have a slight fear of heights. As I walked out into what seemed like the sky, I prayed that that extra croissant I had for breakfast would not cause the shaky walkway to collapse. And then as I inched out even further, my legs turned to jello, and I held my breath as if my breathing might somehow destabilize the bridge. When I finally got more than a foot or two out onto that walkway, my gaze was tunnel-visioned at my feet on the floor, afraid that if I let my gaze unfocus from my shoes, I would have to see the enormity of the canyon I was standing over. Seeming to notice my fear, as mothers have a talent for, without even saying a word, my mom placed her hand on my shoulder, letting me know that everything was going to be okay and that I was safe. My legs still felt wobbly, but I slowly lifted my gaze and focused on the world around me. I looked up, hardly able to grasp the beauty in all directions. It was awesome. And I couldn't help but become mesmerized. Engulfed by the sky above and the canyon below, I seemed to lose myself and become part of it all, unable to tell where I ended and the rest of the world began. It felt awesome because of the enormity of what I was looking at was incomprehensible. It was both amazingly scary and beyond beautiful. In Hebrew, we have a word which describes exactly what I was feeling, both awe and fear all at the same time. The word is norah, or in English we would say awesome. And right now we are at the very beginning of the 10-day period called the Yamim Noraim, the 10 days of awe between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. These days are supposed to make us feel just like I did standing on that walkway suspended over the Grand Canyon, terrified and exhilarated all at the same time. We are supposed to lose ourselves, our egos, and refresh our identities by reconnecting with the people and the world around us. Feeling both terror and awe, like standing over the Grand Canyon or entering these Yamim Noraim, places us in a state called liminality. The concept of liminality was created in the 20th century by a folklorist named Arnold van Gennep, and then popularized by the cultural anthropologist Victor Turner in his work on rites of passage, like, for example, in Australian Aboriginal walkabouts, which marks the transition from childhood to adulthood. Turner explains that a liminal moment is a moment in our lives where we move from one phase to another. Think about moving from being single to being married, or moving from childhood to adulthood, or even moving from Shabbat into the rest of the week. Some of these moments only take a few minutes, say the 30-ish minutes of a wedding ceremony if you have a good rabbi, or the 5 minutes it takes the sun to set. But some of these take a little bit longer, days, or even years, like moving from childhood to adulthood, or like these 10 days between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. Turner explains that these liminal moments are transition phases in our lives. They are moments where our identities are in flux, our social status is uncertain, and where the normal cultural hierarchies don't exist. Liminality is beyond scary. Beyond. Because these are moments where our identities and our place in the world is uncertain. But these moments are also exciting because possibilities are endless. They are moments where we can learn new concepts and ways to look at the world. They are moments of creation. Remember, Rosh Hashanah is also the birthday of the world. Liminal moments are norah, are awesome, because our potential for change within them is both terrifying and amazing. Perhaps that is why in these yamim noraim we are supposed to challenge ourselves and our very identities. And perhaps also why we begin this liminal time with the story that we just read, the story of the Akedah, the binding of Isaac, a story which forces us to challenge our faith and theology, our religion, and our identity. We and our tradition have so many issues with the Akedah because Abraham's journey, which might also be described as a Jewish Aboriginal walkabout, forces us to ask impossible questions about our core beliefs. How can I believe in a God who might ask me to sacrifice my own child? To what end am I willing to stand firm in my beliefs? If I'm not willing to stand by my convictions, then who am I? If I'm not willing to protect my friends and family at all costs, then who am I? Am I willing to abandon all that I believe and all that I have been taught for the sake of another? We have so much difficulty with the Akedah because when we read it, we are forced to accompany Abraham on his liminal journey where he is surely struggling with his own identity, between parent and faithful servant, between leader and follower. And he's so mixed up by the end of the story in such a daze that by the time he's about to sacrifice Isaac, the angel literally has to call his name twice. Abraham, Abraham! In order for Abraham to stop what he is doing and notice the ram that has literally been there, as our tradition tells us, since the beginning of time. Abraham is too caught up in the fear of his liminal journey. He was paralyzed to, for example, challenge God, and was, like I was in those first moments standing above the Grand Canyon, stuck within a tunnel-visioned view of the world, unable to see everything around him. Of course, we all know how liminal moments can cause us to live in fear, unable to also revel in the awe. We become paralyzed by change, or we run in fear from those we hurt, for example, because saying sorry would force us to face our own imperfections. We become like Abraham, unable to experience the fear and majesty of Norah, unable to see the whole potential of the world, and we even become willing to sacrifice our children and ourselves because we are too afraid to open our eyes, embrace our fears, and see the whole picture. We need an angel to yell at us, Abraham, Abraham, or perhaps a kind person to place their hand on our shoulder to wake us from our daze, to see the world clearly and return from our liminal experiences changed for the better. And herein lies the life-changing Jewish idea embedded within the Akedah and these Yamim Noraim, these days of awe. In many other cultures, people experience liminal moments in solitude. And I want to draw a distinction between being alone and being in solitude. Of course, by its very definition, we must experience liminality alone. It's a deeply personal experience where we wrestle with our identities and the core of who we are. But but where many other cultures experience liminal moments both alone and in solitude, like, for example, again, in Australian Aboriginal walkabout, Judaism says no. It is your job and your job alone to wrestle with who you are. But you are not alone. We are not alone in the wilderness. We have angels and we have an entire community to be there in the wilderness with us. It's why our core story is about traveling as a people, an entire people through the wilderness. And why when we stand to atone together for our personal sins and our communal sins. It's why for every Jewish liminal moment, we need a quorum of people. Because our tradition knows that in being alone, we might become lost like Abraham in the wilderness. But together, we can help one another open our eyes to see the whole world rather than becoming paralyzed by the fear of the unknown. This year at Temple Emanuel, we are focused on the phrase, Kol Yisrael Aravim Zeh B'Zeh. We are all responsible for each other. We are all mixed up as we wander through the liminal wilderness of these days of awe together. Though much of our journey over these next 10 days is personal, we do it together and support each other as an entire community. And as we move to re-examine who we are and who we want to be this coming year, may we experience the process of tshuva, of making amends as norah, as wholly awesome. May we not become paralyzed by the fear of change. May we experience the awesome power of feeling both terrified and exhilarated at the same time. And may we not make this liminal journey through the wilderness in solitude, but with our entire community, gently placing compassionate hands on each other's shoulders, ever reassuring each other that it is safe to open our eyes to see the whole world around us. That we might enter this new year changed for the better, one step closer to the type of people we want to be, eyes wide open to this awesome and magnificent world all around us. Shana Tova Umetuka, may this year be a good and sweet one for all of us.